Let me record that again. Anybody want keys on recommendations? Anybody feel like they've struggled on getting recommendations? Here we go. So let me give you a couple of truths. Okay. Number one thing that you need to know is that recommendations is never the customer's problem, it's yours. All right. Sometimes what do I mean by that? We got to take in any situation, we've got to take complete ownership of the fact that if we're not getting recommendations, it's a skill thing. It's not a customer problem. Sometimes and by the way, it's easy to think, oh, well, none of my customers get recommendations or give recommendations. And the answer is if one of my CSPs or if I did a demo for that person, I'd probably get recommendations from them. And every once in a while, there's going to be some people that don't give them like 10%, but the other 90% of the time, you should be able to get recommendations. And if you're not, that's okay. Take ownership of that. Just understand that it's a skill problem and you can get there. Okay. So, you got what I want you to, Matt, what I want you to understand is that every demo that you do has 10 to 20 recommendations in there. The real question is did you show up in a way that earned access to them? Everybody's got 10 to 20 recommendations to give you. The real question is, did you show up in a way that you earned access to them? Customers don't wake up deciding to give you recommendations. They they want to give recommendations to somebody they feel like they believe in, that they feel connected to, that they like, right? So it's you got to understand as much as it is about following the script, it's also very much about how did you present yourself and are you a person that they would want to give recommendations to, right? Because customers at the end of the demo, they're going to feel one or two things. They're either going to be like, I don't necessarily want to give recommendations to this rep because I don't want to feel like I'm sicking the Cutco rep guy, Cutco guy on my friends, right? Or they're going to be like, I had so much fun in this presentation, dude. Janice has to meet this gal because Hannah is so much fun to hang out with. Or, like Susie's got to meet Kazette because this was a great demo and she's got really big goals. Or, man, Vaughn was just like I just couldn't stop laughing. It was a great time and I really want to support somebody, right? So recommendations are not a favor to you, just so you know. They are a natural byproduct of connection, confidence, and the fact that you framed it correctly. Okay. So if you want more recommendations, you got to stop asking if people are going to help you and start showing up like somebody worth helping. Okay. So let's talk about a couple of these. Number one, okay, number one key, if you want to write this down, is that your belief shows up before words. You could have a perfect script, but if your belief is off, it's not in line with that, people can tell. Meaning, if you secretly think people don't give recommendations, like your tone has already lost you recommendations before you even open your mouth to ask. Like customers can feel your belief in your tone and in your language. And so it's really important. Sometimes you got to check your belief on getting recommendations, right? Because what happens is we have recency bias, right? Which is where maybe you have a couple of customers say, well, I don't give recommendations to people. I don't do that. And then you have two or three people say that, and you go into your next demo and you're like, could you maybe give me recommendations? Or do you not do that either? You know what I mean? And we already kind of like lose the sale before we even ask for it on recommendations. Okay. And the difference, by the way, if you believe that people like you, people like buying Cutco from you, that they like Cutco and they like giving recommendations, of course, they're going to give you recommendations. If your mental shift is, of course, people give recommendations, that's what everybody does. That's what makes our top reps get 5 to 10 or 15, and everybody else stalls out at one or two or three. Does everybody follow that? So your belief system is one of the most important things to upgrade in this equation. And if you're having a hard time upgrading that, you should go field training. It's a great thing. You can talk to people who are getting a lot of recommendations. You can talk to me. You can talk to Anthony. We're here to help with that. All right. So that's key number one. Key number two, ready? Talk about recommendations early and often. You want to remove the shock factor. You want to talk about recommendations early and often. If the first time you mention recommendations is at the very end of the presentation, like you're the one that created the awkwardness. Anybody ever had that happen before, by the way? You get to the end and they're like, well, we already bought Cutco. Like, I thought we already helped you out. You know what I mean? Now you want recommendations. It's like, no, listen, you helped them out by helping them get Cutco. What you want to say in your present in your recommendations approach is, Mrs. Jones, there's one more really important part. Here's where you can really help me out, right? Emphasize that. But at the very beginning, you should also be talking about like you should be priming your customer to giving recommendations. So in the beginning, it's not an accident that it says, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, like I said on the phone, you don't have to get anything today. If you do decide to get some Cutco today, I think you'll love it, by the way. You can definitely, definitely helps me out towards my goals. You'll be getting a great product." Also, it says in your script, what does it say? Another goal that I have is that you feel comfortable. I would change that. Jesse's asking me to change the manual only here. Yes. Not another. Ready? Write this down. The biggest goal that I have, Mrs. Jones. It's just that you like me. And I would smile and I would pause. And if you've built some great rapport already, they're like, well, Hannah, we already like you. Oh, good, Miss Jones. No, I just want you to like me. I just want you to like me and Kako enough that you feel comfortable recommending me to some of your friends. In the beginning, that's funny. All right. My mind is going 500 miles an hour, finding more jokes in that concept, but okay. Something else that you could say too is, especially if you got recommended to somebody, has anybody done a demo for somebody, a recommendation? So if you have, you definitely highlight, oh, Mrs. Jones, just like Sally recommended me to you. So that's a really good thing. Right? Something else you could throw in there casually. One of my favorite lines, oh, Mrs. Jones, I can't go door to door with knives. I think you can see how awkward that would be. So, Mrs. Jones, one of my biggest goal is you feel comfortable. You like me and you feel comfortable recommending some people at the end. Don't worry about that now, though. Talk about that at the end. You're still gonna make sure you like me. Right. And for those of you who have learned the 6 steps to enrolling customers in your goals, right, Vaughn, you know that that's kind of like already intertwined in there and you know where that overlaps in the demo. So by the end, it's not a request. It's just like a step that they already expected. Somebody follow that? So if you do it the right way at the beginning, by the time you get to the end and they put in the order, they're like, well, hey, so how do I do this recommendations thing? There's that. Okay, so that's key number 2. Key number 3, ready? Start with one and then climb. You start with 1 or 2 recommendations and then you start the climb. Listen, almost nobody gives you 15 names all at once. Most people aren't like, boom, here's the 15 people. No, usually it's like they give you one, they give you two, the momentum takes over. So let me explain to you the way this worked for me back in the days of Moses, all right? And in the beginning there were recommendations, right? So back in my day, we had to walk uphill to school both ways. Just kidding, that was my dad. No, back in my day when we did appointments though, I almost did exclusively in-person appointments because our virtual appointment was like in its inception. It was pretty rough. But when I did in-person appointments, I'd cut up 5 pieces of food with the customer: tomato, cucumber, apple, orange, and a pineapple. And we'd have all this fruit just like cut up at the table next to the presentation book, and I filled out the order form, and then I would pull out my recommendations notebook. Ready? And so I had this notebook. You guys saw it in training. It's over there somewhere. And I would open it up and I would casually flip through the recommendations notebook as I was saying, like most people give me 10 to 15 or whatever. And I'd be showing pages of 10 to 15. Social proof. I would hand the notebook to them with the pen, just like this. It'd be on the notebook so that way they had to grab the pen as they were going to hold it. And I'd do that way. If you just like slid it over to them on the book, they never picked it up. I would also then what I would do is I'd take all my knives, I'd go over to the kitchen sink, and I'd start washing knives to get them all ready to stuff back in my sample kit. And during that time, I'd have my customers pull out their cell phone, and they got their cell phone, and here's what it almost always looked like. It's like, well, I'll write down 1 or 2, scrolling through, and then Mrs. Jones kind of looks at her phone. Okay, I just forgot about that person. And then she gives 2 or 3. And as she's doing that, I'm like, hey, Mrs. Jones, who else? Who do you know? Who dot dot dot. Right? I'd write that down. Who do you know who dot dot dot? That's in your recommendation script. You've seen it before, but let me explain what that is. It's a thought jogger. Nobody's going to think of 15 people all at once, right? And so You're just throwing out ideas. Ms. Jones, who do you know that's got a nice kitchen? Who do you know that likes to shop? Mrs. Jones, who do you know that loves Costco? Who do you know that dresses their husband in Kirkland head to toe? Who do you know who likes to bake? Who do you know who has their credit card number memorized? I'm just kidding, Mrs. Jones. No, but for real. Um, we don't have to do that now in the teens. That was a thing because it wasn't saved on our phones or whatever. Like anybody that actually shopped, like knew what the credit card number was. Here's another one. It's like, oh, Miss Jones, let's just start with the nicest person you know who doesn't hate college kids. Or if you're not in college, because I know most of you aren't, you could be like, Miss Jones, who's the nicest person that you know who'd just be willing to see me? Cool. Awesome, Mrs. Jones. Thank you so much. And you want to say thank you a handful of times. Thank you so much. Hey, who else? Who else do you know is a nice person? Who else do you know that likes, nice thing? Who do you know um who likes to barbecue, Mrs. Jones, right? It's a smile, slow down, and you're just climbing each one, right? And that trust, as you're smiling and thanking and throwing out ideas, that creates more volume. That creates more recommendations. We good on that? Could throw out some other things. Ms. Jones, I want to do a demo for somebody in every 50 states. Who do you know that doesn't live in Utah? Who do you know that doesn't live in Who do you know that doesn't live in Colorado? Who do you know that doesn't live in Wyoming? The great part about that, Gwen, is you can start getting recommendations for people in other pockets of the world, and you get recommended to their church friends. All of a sudden, you got a group of customers in Georgia or Rhode Island or something like that. And what's great is you're getting tons of recommendations and working that way. Cool. Military base, Hannah? Or no? Good. Good, good. I was gonna say we can't ship to them if they're not on a military base, so that's great. Um, Demos in Germany. Quentin in our office, by the way, there's a special events program where he's actually like on our federal team where he goes to military bases all over the United States and sells Cutco at military bases. And sells like he'll have a booth at a base bond for like 2 to 3 days and sell ten to $20,000 worth of Cutco. Yeah. Right. So think you could ask for that, Ms. Jones. Who do you know that's on base? All right. So that's key number three. Key number four. Ready? They do like their knives and they also cook and they want American made stuff. Key number four to getting recommendations. Ready? Act like you expect to get a yes. Not act, sorry. Ask like you expect to get a yes. Back to that recency bias thing. Oftentimes, what happens with new reps, right? You have one customer, two, three customers tell you we don't give recommendations. And then a week, and then you start asking like a wimp. Whereas the kids like today, you start asking like a simp. Even worse. Mrs. Jones, if you're comfortable, could you maybe um, go through the app and see if there's anybody who you might, maybes, likes, probablys, if you're comfortable, potentially weak words. Remove them from your vocabulary. Be bold, but not overbearing. Smile and ask with boldness. Hey, Mrs. Jones, this is actually my favorite part. This is how I get paid. I get to meet a ton of awesome people like you. Does everybody see the difference? Like if you approach the script with those two different like points of view, it's gonna have wildly different outcomes. Same content, different tone, different posture. Your customers don't respond to pressure, right? They respond to certainty. They're looking for your certainty. They're looking for your warmth, confidence and warmth, right? So here's a couple of phrases you can implement today. This is my favorite part. I'd write that down. This is my favorite part. This is how I grow my business. All right. This is how I grow my customers. Second phrase. Let's just start with one. Easy enough. If you can get one, you can get a few more. Who do you think would be nice enough to see me or nice enough to help me out? That's your third phrase. So again, this is my favorite part. It's how I grow my business. Let's just start with one. Who do you think might be nice enough to help me out? And then the last one again is thank you so much, by the way. This means the world to me, or this helps a ton, right? Listen, confidence and gratitude are an unstoppable combination. Okay. So remember this, and I'll take a few questions here. If you're ever low on confidence, remember again, people don't give recommendations to Cutco, they give them to you, right? It's because they believe in you. So the recommendations you're looking for are with the customers that you already have. So dig where you're standing because your people know people that buy Cutco. Show up like somebody worth recommending, and you'll never run out of people again. Make sure you are focusing on having fun with your customers and building a great relationship. What does a great relationship look like, by the way? We could spend a whole day on building rapport, but it's asking them questions about their lives, asking them for, tips on how to stay married for 20, 30, 40 years. That was one of my favorite, easiest ones to reach for, by the way. Anytime I did an appointment with a customer, by the way, Miss Jones, just out of curiosity, how long y'all been married? 30 years? Oh my goodness. As somebody who aspires to be married that long, Mrs. Jones, like, give me a tip on staying married for 30 years. One of my favorite parts about that is if the husband and the wife are together, you can totally peg like relationship dynamics based on answers. The husband's like, well, your wife's always right. It's like, all right, sounds good. Or if they're like, hey, spend time together. Oh, wow, that's amazing. You know what I mean? But anyway, ask things like that. The last one, by the way, is make sure that you have the recommendations approach memorized. If you don't have it memorized, like you can't be mad at anybody that you're not getting recommendations but you. It's like 15 bullet points. It's not that long. Some of you recognize, like, memorize the Gettysburg Address as a fifth grader. You know what I mean? Some of you have memorized lyrics to Eminem songs. You can't tell me you can't memorize, 15 bullet points. By the way, here's a tip for you if you want to. Two tips on memorizing something. One, okay? One strategy is this. Read it every line, and you do one line at a time. Mrs. Jones, how'd you like my demo? Then you do it again. Mrs. Jones, how'd you like my demo? Great. Go ahead and pull out your cell phone. You can answer that third question about my product knowledge for me. There's no need to make me sound better than I really am. I want to get real feedback so I can keep improving. Mrs. Jones, how'd you like my demo? Great. Go ahead and pull out your cell. And then you do every line. You do boom, 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 boom. And you go through it all over again. And then here's a tip for you. Then you read it backwards. That's weird. But what it does, Kazette, and it actually helps realign the words in the sentence. Straight up. If you read it backwards, I don't have a poll open in front of me, right? But if you were to say something like task around moods, negative, manage, to, inability, and of, because, procrastination, chronic of, chronic, right? Of cycle. What it does, it actually realigns the words in your brain. And that's a pretty good way to do it. Another one you could do is print off the recommendations approach, take a black marker and read it out loud to yourself, cross off one word. Read out loud to yourself, cross off one word. There's probably 200 words, 300 maybe. You're going to read it 300 times and block off a word every single time. I promise you, by the time you're done with reading that 300 times and you'll have blacked out every word, you'll have the whole thing memorized. Here's another good strategy too. Record it, audio saying it, and then you can go to sleep listening to it in your earphones if you want. But do whatever the heck you need to do. Memorize the dang approach, and here's why. Because you need to memorize and internalize something before you can personalize it. Does everybody follow that? If you try to wing a script you do not know, no confidence there. If you know something, drunk, sleep, or awake, like then if you can ask with confidence, a smile, with warmth, and it is a so much different ask as opposed to everything else. Fair enough? Okay. All right. Hannah, what's your question? You've been holding on to it.
The biggest thing I'm running into with recommendations is